kind of funny for me. When we started Genesis Community a little over a year ago, I had no idea what kind of an adventure it would be. For me personally, I've experienced a lot of things in my life, a lot of different things, but in some cases, I think I've been a bit sheltered in my own experience. I shared with you before, I suffered from the loss of my father at a young age. At 18, my dad died of cancer. Some of you I've shared it with you guys several times. But in the last year, I've really been forced to. I've seen other people's experiences and been in contact with other experiences before in my life. But through this community, I've been in direct contact with a lot of people through some very specific struggles in ways that have really touched my heart. As I've seen some of you go through some very difficult things, and some of you, those things are still ongoing. This last week, I was in a real rut. And you can ask Megan; she can share with you how wonderful a companion I was this week. It was a bit of a disaster, and I share that with you openly because, like Amy talks about, she shared a little bit about how she got busy doing some things and she forgot why she was doing it to begin with, and I found myself in a similar situation where I was very busy planning and doing and what's amazing is I'm a pastor, and everything that I was planning and doing had to do with pastor stuff and talking about God, and yet I'm so busy doing this stuff that in the meantime I found myself becoming disconnected from the message and God Himself. And Thursday I came in. This was something I needed so bad. It was so funny. I needed it so badly. I came in for Bible study on Thursday. For our Genesis Bible study, we talk about growing together on Thursday nights, 7:30, 8:30, and we didn't have as big a group as we sometimes do, but it was so good. I needed that so bad, and it was. As I was sitting there, like for me, what I love to do in Bible study is to hear how God's word hits other people, and it's amazing to hear how other things jump out at them. And as we were talking about self-centeredness and how we sometimes are so focused on exterior things, and we're not focused on how God wishes to touch our hearts, our innermost being. I sat there thinking, you know what? I've been holding God at a distance quite a bit, and I needed God to wake me up. It was the coffee, Annette. Oh, Annette's joking about the coffee, but I'm telling you, man, I made some really strong coffee. That stuff, that was sludge, man. If you drank that stuff, you'd be awake for a week. Daniel, how you doing? Daniel came into that study, and he's like, I'm like, Daniel, you're gonna be awake, man, after this. Yeah, it was. And you know what? I believe you. I came back in the room after everybody got it, and they're like, I can taste the particles of the coffee. It's amazing. Yeah, it was so bad. I promise you I'll do a better job next time. Maybe you like it that way. I don't know. But yeah, no, it was really what I needed. And when I look, it's amazing to me. We have a lot of new faces out. We have some new faces out here, people I don't know as well, but I know many of you here today, and I look at people and I see people who have been stuck in some pretty rough cycles of destructive behavior, just trying to get out of it. You're just trying. And if that's you right now, we love you and we're with you. We're behind you. I want you to know that. I know some of you have had some pretty rough childhood experiences, things that have scarred you and have hurt you and have made it difficult today to have certain things that you wish you could have in a healthy way. I know some of you are struggling with health right now. Some of you have been going through some really rough stuff with that. It just seems like it's happening over and over and over. Some of you, those health issues have been a while, but they're still things that stick with you. And for some of you, it hasn't just been health. It's been health in combination with other things, family circumstances that have just thrown you into turmoil. Some of you have spouses that are just wreaking havoc in your life right now. And maybe for some of you, I know for some of you, it's something that you've accepted, that there's going to be that struggle there, and you've been engaging in it, and God bless you, and you've been doing what you can, And I've kind of heard some of your stories, and I've been able to, sympathize with you. You can't control people. It's devastating to think about these things. And some of you have been ostracized, pushed on the outside, felt that way very much. Some of you have been struggling with God in various ways. Some of you, you've been wandering for a bit. You've been trying to find a home, place that you can feel accepted and loved. Some of you just want companionship. You're lonely. Dealing with lots of different things. We have a lot of different things going on in this room, and I know, each of you could share stories. All of you, no matter who we are, could share stories right now of things that we're struggling with, things that have impacted you in deep ways and have left scars. And perhaps you feel stuck in some ways. Maybe you feel like you just can't get out of it. How do I break the cycle? How do I look at these things in a healthy way? How do I move forward? And if that's where you find yourself, then Christmas is a great place to start. That manger in Bethlehem, Jesus himself, because that whole account that Sarah read earlier speaks to you. And in particular, I think of the shepherds. There's lots of people to think about. I'm guessing a lot of us have probably heard that story on Christmas, maybe in a church setting, maybe not. People are used to maybe I heard on Charlie Brown Christmas, and there's lots of characters in this story. There's Mary and Joseph. There's the stable. There's the animals. There's that setting. There's they weren't able to stay in an inn, so they're stuck probably in a cave in some dark, wet cave, ugly situation. But I kind of think of the shepherds, because here you have God himself, who was born, came to be among human beings, and who are the first people that God comes to? Shepherds. And you may say, what's the big deal about that? Now let me explain something to you about shepherds. They were outcasts. They were the lowest of the low. They were stuck. They were watching over sheep. Okay, now get this. They were watching over sheep that were likely used as sacrifices for religious people. For these religious people that would sacrifice these animals so that they could get themselves right with God, atone for their sins. Atone means to sacrifice, and in their place, this animal would die and their sins would be forgiven. So these shepherds would watch over these sheep, but they would not be let anywhere near that temple. Outsiders. Outcasts. Talk about stuck. And on a dark night, plain old ordinary night, suddenly these angels appear, and this heavenly host, they're treated to a choir of angels. I think that'd be kind of cool. They're treated to a choir of angels, these nobodies. And this is what they say to them. Fear not. And pay attention to the bold words. Fear not, for behold, I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all the people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. Fear not. Those words that the angel spoke to those shepherds, I believe, are also spoken to each of us in this room. What is your fear? What is the thing that's making you so anxious? Are you busy trying to control your circumstances? Are you busy just killing yourself, frustrated with life, frustrated with your situation? Do you feel stuck? Well, if you're in that situation, God says, fear not. Don't be afraid. And there are many other echoes of those words. Don't be afraid. Don't fear. Jesus himself would later say that. Do not be anxious. Do not be fearful. Doesn't God take care of the birds of the air, the lilies of the field? If he does, he'll so much more take care of you. I know that sounds it's easy for me to say that, right? It's easy for me to say that, especially if you feel stuck, if you consider your own circumstances and your own situation. But that's why you need to remember the second part. Why Why does God say, do not be afraid? Because I bring good news. The gospel, which is what stands at the center of the Christian faith, means good news. And the good news of the gospel is that not only is God with us, but God has come to be with us to free us. The good news is that God, I just loved listening to Amy sharing, how like, I just don't even think about it because I'm so busy doing stuff. I'm so busy trying to break the cycle. I'm so busy trying to get out of the situation. I'm so busy trying to, when I find myself in that situation, like I did this last week, I was trying to manufacture my own joy from the inside. I was trying to build something up within myself. If I can only get myself in a perfect situation, I'll have joy. That's what I want. If only I can get all the ducks in a row as I want it, I'll have joy. But God says, fear not. I bring you good news of great joy. I bring you good news of great joy. That joy is brought to you from the outside. So when I talk at Genesis Community, when I talk about hope, there's a reason why I always say that hope comes from the outside. I can't manufacture it. And the good news of Jesus is that God has brought joy to you. Whether you feel it or not right now, the message of that baby is joy is here. Sometimes perhaps I find myself focusing too much on what I'm in the middle of, that I'm not focusing first and foremost on Jesus, the joy he brings, and the freedom that he offers. I'm going to back up here for a second. I wanted you to ponder that for a second. And, maybe you're somebody that struggles with the concept of miracles. It's all nice, warm, and fuzzy for us to sit up here, sing Christmas songs, and talk about Jesus being born. But perhaps you struggle with the idea that maybe you struggle with God actually existing to some degree, and beyond that, maybe you're just struggling with how God himself could come into this world and do anything about it. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever looked around and been frustrated? If you open up a history book, I taught a history class for a number of years, and it's interesting if you look at human history. Human history is one thing after another, one frustration, one aggravated, we got it all together, then comes another war, there comes genocide, there comes something else. I mean, you look at human history, and it's just one frustration after the next, and I believe that at the core of this is a human race, human beings, you and me, who believe that we have it all together and that hope comes from me. I can figure it out, and I don't need anybody else. And you know what that does? You know what that creates? It creates a cycle. I find myself stuck. When I try and figure out my own answers and I try and, create my own joy, if only this scenario takes place, what I find is I end up in a cycle. Maybe I'm doing okay. I had somebody earlier in the week that I've been trying to come back to Genesis. Hope he comes back, and he says he will. And he told me that things are going pretty good right now. And I said, you know what? They won't always be good. Hate to burst your bubble. But they won't. They might be fine now, but you're going to have another day. So from my perspective, I'm feeling kind of good right now. But you know what? Tomorrow may not be as good. That's okay. That's okay, because my hope is not found within me. You see, whenever I'm confronted with somebody who's struggling with miracles and all these sorts of things, the first thing that I do is I say, hey, you got to start by looking at Jesus. And you know what? That baby was born to do this. And that makes sense. It makes perfect sense that this is how God would enter into my circumstances, my situation, because everything, all my problems are oftentimes, there are things in life that, yes, happen by virtue of the fact that this world is not as it should be, and it may not be my fault at all, but there are other things that oftentimes happen in my life, and it causes me such turmoil because I am obsessed with it, and I'm focused so much on what I wish was different. and I become self-absorbed, and it just creates this vicious cycle of what's wrong now, and it's all about feeling better, and once I feel better, well, I suddenly find myself going backwards. And how does Jesus come in contact with that? Jesus is God himself saying, this is what humanity, perfect humanity looks like. This is what I believe I am called to do. I am called as a human being to selflessly love others, which I really stink at, okay? Let's get that straight. But God understood that as human beings, that is something we struggle with. That vicious cycle tends to just go over and over and over again. And so what he did was he said, you know what, I am going to come and live amongst my people, and I'm going to show them. And so what Jesus did, he did what none of us could do. He laid it all out. He allowed people to mock him. He allowed people to say all sorts of things that weren't true, and he just took it. And he allowed human beings to crucify him, broken human beings, self-centered human beings to crucify him. And it makes sense as the solution to the problem, and this is what Jesus offers. Jesus offers grace. And grace, and by the way, having a crying child is actually okay, I think. Means that we have children here. Grace, grace I define as one-way love. It's God coming to me saying, I love you with no strings attached. I'm not loving you when, I'm not loving you if, I love you as you are right now. And you know what that does? That allows you freedom from your circumstances, from your struggles, from that cycle that you're stuck in. It's a free gift that he's offering. You know, if you're stuck focusing in the past, he says, it's done. Let it go. Today's a new day. Today's a new beginning. It's a fresh start. It's my gift of grace to you. That's what I'm offering you. If you're stuck in a cycle and you fall again, you know what? That gift of grace is saying, you know what? Yeah, you screwed up again. I love you. Today's a new day. Let's start over. Let's try again. I'll be here for you. If you've struggled with hurt feelings, you struggled with the actions of somebody else, the gift of grace is the thing which can heal any circumstances. And so really, what it comes down to, if we're going to start, if you're struggling with God and all that kind of stuff, it really comes down to a simple thing. You know, there's no argument that Jesus was born, that Jesus lived and that he died. There's no argument about that. The question really is, who do you believe Jesus is? If Jesus is God, then that gift of grace that I've told you about is true. And he promises you that he will see you through it, and one day there will be no more struggle. That's his promise. I always go back to this. I still remember one of the greatest moments, the 3 greatest moments in my life. And my wife's in the back. The 4 greatest moments, we were married. Shaking her head. The other 3 greatest moments were my children being born. I just remember all of them. It's just this amazing thing. You know, my wife's pregnant, and I see this image, this like blob on a scanner. You know, it's my child's right there. You know, and they come out and they have 10 fingers and 10 toes. How does that happen? You know, it just happens. We take it for granted. Is that not a miracle? Is that not a miracle that a child that happens, that all these things work together? And is that an accident? I think that's a miracle. And for me, it's not a stretch to take it one step further and say that God could become one of those. If a baby can be born with 10 fingers and 10 toes, why couldn't Jesus and the joy that he brings be true? The gift of grace is real. And what I would like to encourage all of you to do this Christmas is to consider how you might engage God a bit more. I would like to encourage you, if this is your first time at Genesis, I'd love to have you back. I'd love to have you back and just get to know your story and just give it a chance. Just give this community a chance. It's a loving community. That's the best part about it. We love each other, and we're here for one another, and we're here to listen to one another, free from judgment. That's what we're here for. And to allow God's love to come in contact with our lives, and for us, and it's an opportunity for us to remind one another that a new beginning is real. It's possible through the power of his love. And today, if you've had a bad yesterday, today is a new day. Tomorrow's a new day. Day after that, after that's